In this video, we're going to talk about the most controversial person of this decade, Donald J. Trump. As his imperialistic nature has started to show in first few months of his order, or is this something else? How acquiring Greenland, Canada, and now even Gaza can give a subtle hint of imperialism and how this affects global economy. Let's discuss about that. But first, get rid of the intoxicating dramatic music and put on some lo-fi jazz. Welcome to Lo-Fi Philosophy with Amarnath. So let's first discuss about what the hell is imperialism. So imperialism is an ideology which we have seen in Greek and other great civilizations that has existed. Imperialistic ideology means that one must expand the territory of their nation to make it great, and this is something Donald J. Trump is seeing doing. So he's trying to expand the territory of America. For example, first he introduced how Greenland he gonna buy Greenland, and then he proposed how he's gonna put tariff, economic and military force on Canada to acquiring it.
Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us what is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama.
And then he talked about how he's going to acquire Gaza, which seems to be very fine. So how does it exactly play? So to understand that, we first must understand why the hell imperialism failed at the first place, right? Imperialism did not work because if A fights with B, C wins. So what exactly that means? So for example, you and I are fighting, and suppose you win because you're the stronger and you're the better person. So another person, C, might see that as an opportunity. Why? Because you're vulnerable right now. I hurted you, you hurted me, I got defeated, you won, but you are vulnerable at this point. So C might see that as an opportunity to win and show his dominance. So this is one of the reasons that imperialism did not work. What are the other reasons? The other reason is countries always at war. So which actually hinders economy in many sense. And the idea is of so bad social health. So for example, you don't just lose life in war, you also lose limbs in war. So person who might not have hands because he was in war. And when country is always at war, the person who have lost a lot of limbs, there are a lot of those people. But in imperialistic era, in the modern, in the Rome, sorry, not modern Rome, in the Rome and Greek, that they just did not survive. So, but they did survive in Germany. Germany had an imperialistic nature, right? The third is the fewer allies, right? So, for example, what happened with Germany, that they had a treaty with Poland that, okay, fine, we're not going to conquer you, but that is what exactly they did. They conquered Poland. So, this is one of the reasons imperialism did not work, because people couldn't trust them in others anymore. So, now let's talk about postmodern imperialism. So I don't want you to be afraid of word postmodern. In my understanding, that just means rebranding. So postmodern imperialism means the rebranding of imperialism. So except a military force, we're gonna do everything else to conquer your territory. For example, we're gonna put economic sanctions, we're gonna use cultural propaganda, and we're gonna put tariffs. That's how we're gonna do economic expansion in your country, affect your country, to do imperialistic activities. Now, this is something we are seeing with Trump's administration. For example, when he talks about Greenland, when he talks about Mexico, and when he especially talks about Canada. This is called postmodern imperialism. So Trump is, postmodern imperialist. But one thing we have to understand is that this idea is not new in West. West has always abided by the laws of postmodern imperialism. For example, we have seen same with Obama. For example, his attacks with drones. So I want to talk about Israel and Gaza first. So when Trump is actually referring to the idea of acquiring Gaza for long term, what he's actually planning is to create Ben-Gurion Canal. So let's discuss about that, right? So how connecting Ben-Gurion Canal will actually help US economy. So first thing is, enhancing trade efficiency. So this actually creates a faster Mediterranean route for Asia and European countries. So we'll get better shipment. Reducing transit time and shipment cost. So it actually reduces shipment cost and the shipment time. And it also helps US company have more reliable trade routes. So that makes sense, right? Now, now this also presents an alternative for Suez Canal, which actually handles 12% of global trade as of right now. And Ben-Gurion Canal actually provides an alternative route for Suez Canal, which is faster and cheaper. Now, why exactly that is cheaper is because the Gaza Strip is now actually owned by America. Now let's talk about Panama Canal. Now Panama Canal is very important for Chinese, right? Because they depend upon Panama Canal for their shipments to America and Europe. And this is also important for them from raw material perspective because they depend on Panama Canal to receive their raw material supplies. So if they don't have raw material, they can't really produce anything. And when they can't produce anything, the economy goes crippled. So this actually explains very commonly understandable points. What? One, US is trying to capture all of the supply chains. Two, that they're gonna rule the oil because Trump was very pro oil even before the election started, right? And now because he was very pro oil, that explains the Canada situation also, because Canada I think is the fourth most biggest largest holder of oil, and Trump wants Canada for that particular reason, so he can control the oil and the supply chain, and the America is great again. Now I think that plan works economically wise. But how exactly does this play around with morality? Well, it doesn't really matter because this is economics and international politics where genocides are very common, and morality just depends upon how things go out for the elected individual and the people who elected them. So this does seem a very good plan for American citizens. Now a very big problem might be how he's going to execute it, because a lot of this comes under the gray area for the law. International laws and treaties is something you has always seemed to abide by their words. Now let's see how it goes out. Now exactly how can Europe and Asia handle the situation? So one thing is pretty clear, is that if US doesn't play nice, then everyone is doomed. So how exactly this is going to plan out? So in my understanding, if Europe wants to face this, so one of the ways is to abide by the same ideology of postmodern imperialism, and this is something India also needs to adopt. Now Russia has gone throughout the war as an imperialistic ideology. Now it's time to have a more modern approach of postmodern imperialism. Now in my understanding, one of the best ways is to create a Russia-India economic corridor, which won't be a lot of things, and after assessing that the China has a fair bit of pressure from America, China can help in this. Now Russia, India and China, if they create an economic corridor, this will improve a lot of trade opportunities for both of the three countries. And how can Europe help with this? Now Europe has a very important perspective in this, because a lot of consumers are in Europe, a lot of governments are in Europe. Now they can create an international pressure on America to play nice, while India, China and Russia create an alternative route, so we don't have an autocracy in world economics. I actually forgot to mention how this is going to help Europe. One of the things to understand is that India has a lot of labor, China has a lot of resources, and Russia has a lot of power. So when I say power, I actually mean gas and petroleum. Now this creates an echo chamber of economic growth and prosperity, and it also creates a very good economic market to which Europe can actually import raw materials from and export their product. So this gives Europe an alternative market other than US. Now one more thing to understand is that this is a wake-up call for every world leader to understand the fact that now this is time for collaboration. For last decade, China and Europe has somewhat been isolated, and so has Russia, and so has India. But America, on the other hand, has always been more collaborative. Now, the fact that we have seen what happens when America goes full out on economic war, it's gonna be hell. So, I think it's very important to understand the fact that everyone in this world needs to collaborate together to create prosperity for their peoples. I hope this message is well received by a lot of world leaders. Now, that's my perspective, and the only way to see what comes is by waiting. So, till then, bye bye.